we need to move on as we consider how can Jesus die?
但係做乜耶穌需要死咧？
We will read Revelation first. Revelation chapter 1 verse 8. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. I am he who is, who was, and is to come.
神說我是阿拉法俄米加，係昔在、今在、以後永遠同在的全能者。
This verse clearly tells us that Jesus is the God, the eternal God.
呢個清楚幫我講，主耶穌係永恆的救主。
And if He's the eternal God, how can God die?
如果係耶穌係永恆的神，做咩會死咧？
We Christians say that on Good Friday, they took Jesus, they whipped Him, they tortured Him, and they nailed Him to the cross.
先講係在耶穌330嗰年，在拜五嗰日，去將耶穌壓到一個角他，一路嘅打佢，擠落去。
We Christians say that on the cross Jesus hung and He breathed His last and He said it is finished and He died.
至尾在最後嗰一刻，主耶穌臨死之前講成了，然之後最後一啖氣就斷氣咗。
Can God die?
神咁樣死嗎？
Can an eternal, ever-living God die?
為何有永遠活在上帝嘅仔會咁樣死咧？
Can an almighty, omnipotent God die?
點可能個無所不知、無所不能、無所不在上帝嘅仔咁樣死咧？
Let's read another portion of scripture.
我再讀聖經。
Also from Revelation 21. Now talking about human being, unrighteous human being, the unbelieving, the immoral, the idolaters, they will be thrown into the lake of fire, which is the second death.
因為講到關於一個第二次死亡嘅事實，唯有膽怯的、不信的、可憎的、殺人的、淫亂的、行邪術的、拜偶像的和一切説謊的，他們的份就係燒在硫磺的火鍋裏。這係第二次的死。
This scripture raised something to us that is very interesting. This scripture talk about the second death.
特別係講到人類嘅第二次死亡。
And this phrase, this terminology, second death, ought to help us or ought to cause us to think about what death really is.
使我哋去思考究竟死亡係咩意思？
So what is death?
究竟咩係死亡？
We human beings think that death is a termination.
好多人以為人死而燈滅，一切都玩完。
We think that when the heart stops beating,
當心臟唔可以呼吸停止，人就死咗。
we think that when the lungs stop breathing, we die.
肺唔可以呼吸就係死亡。
When we thought that when the brain stopped functioning, we die.
或者腦細胞唔可以用，唔可以活動就死咗。
The vital signs are no more there, so we pronounce a person as dead.
所以就可以宣布呢個人已經死亡。
That is our human thinking. We think that death is a termination.
所以對人嚟講，死亡係結束，一切都停止。
Brain not working, lung not working, heart not working, we die. We think like that.
腦死亡，心唔可以跳，呼吸，肺唔可以呼吸，就玩完。
That is the physical understanding.
呢個肉體嘅死亡。
But the biblical understanding is something else.
但係聖經屬靈嘅解釋唔係咁樣嘅。
The biblical understanding see death not as a termination, but as a separation.
但係聖經講，人死所謂死亡唔係停止，唔係結束，係所謂嘅暫時嘅分離。
It is a big subject, so I only bring one example to illustrate this point.
我只講一個嘅例子。
I want to bring us back to the Garden of Eden.
再翻呢個樂園。
God created the male and the female.
呢個伊甸園上帝創造一男一女，
Adam and Eve.
亞當夏娃。
He set them in the garden and he said, all the trees in the garden, they are your food, you can eat.
然之後上帝對亞當夏娃講：一切嘅果子都可以食，
But there's one tree you cannot touch.
但係一棵樹嘅果子唔可以摸，
You cannot eat.
唔可以食。
You eat of this tree, there will be a consequence.
如果你食呢一棵樹嘅果子，有個惡果。
What is the consequence?
呢個咩惡果咧？
You will die.
就係你會死亡。
In fact, the King James Bible says, the day you eat of the fruit, the day you eat of the fruit, you will die.
甚至聖經因為原本講你咩時候食，咩時候就死。
We know the story.
我哋知道呢個故事，
How the serpent came and tempted Eve.
呢個蛇嚟引誘夏娃，
And how Eve ate and Adam also ate.
夏娃食開亦俾亞當食。
Let me ask you a question.
我就問你一個問題：
Did they die when they eat the fruit?
當你兩個人都食開嗰個果子，有馬上死冇？
Did they die?
係咪馬上就死？
No, they did not.
當時冇死。
Even though the commandments of God, the words of God is that the day you eat, you will die, they did not die.
雖然神嘅話咁清楚，咩時候食就咩時候死，但係當時佢哋冇死。
Not only they did not die, they lived a few hundred years more before they finally died.
長命百歲，多活幾百歲。
Am I right or not?
呢個係聖經嘅記載。
So what does it mean when God says the day you eat of this fruit you will die? What does it mean?
所以講你咩時候食，咩時候就死，做咩冇死咧？
Let's go deeper into the
我
scripture.
再睇深一啲。
So after they sinned against God, after they ate the fruit, God confronted them.
但係上帝出現就係當中面對佢哋，
God pronounced some judgment on them.
上帝亦宣判佢哋嘅罪狀，
He says that the woman in pain you shall give birth.
就係生產上非常痛苦。
He said to the man, you are going to eat by the sweat of your brow.
然之後亞當你需要勞苦流汗，正有得食。
After all those things had been done, God did the next thing. He chased them out from the Garden of Eden.
上帝講完呢一切，將佢趕出伊甸園，
He chased them out from the Garden of Eden.
從伊甸園趕出你哋。
So Adam and Eve is separated from
換
God.
句話講，亞當夏娃幫上帝隔離咗，
Death.
呢個就係死亡。
This is spiritual death. A separation where our relationship is cut off with God.
呢個係屬靈嘅死亡，人幫神嘅關係暫停咗。
Physical death.
肉體嘅死亡，
Physical death is when the brain stop working, the heart stop working, the lungs stop working, the body die, but the spirit and the soul is separated from the body.
腦死亡，唔可以呼吸，心就唔跳，就係肉體死亡。但係屬靈嘅死亡係幫上帝隔離，
That is the physical death.
呢個就係所謂肉體的死亡。
We talk about the physical death, we talk about the spiritual death. Now I want to talk about the third death, eternal death.
我講開呢個肉體嘅死亡、屬靈嘅死亡，講永遠的死。
Eternal death is a permanent, eternal separation from God.
呢個永遠嘅死係永遠幫上帝隔開分離。
It will happen when the book of life is opened on the day of judgment.
在一個白色大寶座嘅審判嘅時候，呢個生命嘅冊子打開咗。
It will happen when the name doesn't appear in the book of life. God will say, depart from me, be sent into the lake of fire and eternal separation.
任何一個人嘅名字冇出現在呢個生命嘅冊子，就會永遠嘅丟入呢個流亡的火湖，永遠的死。
We think that death is termination, but the biblical understanding of death is separation.
人類嘅死亡以為係呢個肉體嘅死，其實真正嘅死係幫上帝永遠隔離。
In fact, when Jesus Christ hung on the cross,
當主耶穌被釘在十字架嘅時候，
some of us will remember one of the things he said while he was hanging on the cross.
我哋記得主耶穌所曾經講幾句説話，
Jesus Christ said 7 things on the cross.
其實有7句説話。
One of the things he said was, my God, why have you forsaken me?
其中一句講：我的神，我的神，為何你丟棄我？
Why have you forsaken me?
我的神啊，為何丟棄我？
Because at the cross, when Jesus Christ breathed his last, God turned his back on his son.
主耶穌臨死之前透最後一口氣嘅時候，神轉過身嚟服睇耶穌。
So Jesus Christ was separated, the Son of God was separated from God.
換句話講，最後一刻，上帝幫主耶穌分開咗。
Can God die?
神嘅仔做咩會死？
Can God die?
神會死冇？
上帝點樣會死呢？一個身為神嘅人，點解會死呢？ How can God die?
所以神嘅上帝嘅仔耶穌做咩在嗰刻死呢？
God can die because death is not termination. Doesn't mean suddenly Jesus ceased to exist. No, death is not termination, but death is
在
separation.
耶穌斷氣嗰一刻，唔係講耶穌永遠消失喺呢個世界，但係講暫時嘅分離。
This is an important point for us to think.
呢個係非常重要嘅一點。
There are 2 angles to see the importance of this point. 2 angles.
最少有2個角度係非常重要嘅。
The first angle is theologically, some of us say, how can God die?
神學上，我哋以為神絕對唔會死。
Jesus Christ died. He became separated from
其
God.
實主耶穌斷氣嗰一刻，係幫上帝暫時分離。
In fact, one scripture in Ephesians says that Jesus went down
以弗所書講，主耶穌暫時到一個地方。
The second important point
第二點好重要嘅，
is for us to understand our death.
我嚟到自己嘅死亡。
Our death, 有啲人講死咗就一了百了咯，die everything no more。
人講死而燈滅，燈都滅咗落，玩完咗。
冇啊，
玩咗係唔係咁樣？
我哋身為人唔係死咗一了百了。
唔係人死而燈滅。
When we as human beings we die, it does not mean that we die everything. It's not like a chicken. You slaughter the chicken no more. It's not like that.
開你頸死咗。
So this second point is good for us to reflect on our own self.
我哋反省下自己嘅生命。
When we die, will we be separated from God eternally?
我哋斷氣嗰刻係幫上帝永遠分離咧，
Or will we be in the presence of God, reunited?
其實反而啱啱相反，幫上帝喺一齊。
My last